Hello guys, Crispy here and welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing the Radeon RX 6900 XT in Spider-Man Remastered. This one is the MSI Gaming X Trio version of the card. I think that's the name of it. Now, it's the Gaming Z Trio version of the card. It's a beast of a GPU, guys. It belongs to a friend of mine, so thanks Franks for lending it to me. And we are running it, of course, with the latest AMD drivers, Adrenaline Edition 22.8.1 at the time of recording this video. I'm not overclocking the card, but it comes already overclocked out of the box. You can see all of its specs here. Intact power-ups, GPU Z, resizable bar is enabled, or AMD SAM, and yeah, you can check it out here. 16 gigabytes of GDDR6. Let's go to the processor. We're running it with a Ryzen 9 5900X and 32 gigabytes of RAM, 3200 MHz DL14 dual channel, and let's get right into it, shall we? Now let's go over the settings first. I'm playing at 1080p resolution, and we're also going to test this one at 1440p and 4K. We're using TAA anti-aliasing at the moment, native resolution, but we're also going to test it out with FSR 2.0 on quality. And over in the graphics settings, we're using the very high settings preset, but I made a couple of changes. First of all, I disabled chromatic aberration and motion blur, and then I set the texture filtering to 16 times, which doesn't really affect performance, honestly, and it's at 8 times by default for some reason. And the ambient occlusion is set to SSAO instead of HBAO+, because HBAO+ is actually bugged in this game. Okay, holy jeez, okay. That is insane. We're getting almost 200 FPS at times. Of course, it drops a lot because this game is super CPU intensive, so we're actually CPU bound here at 1080p resolution. Look at that power usage, by the way, at 80% GPU utilization. This card is super efficient, as you can see right there. Wow, that's insane. All right, just started counting our FPS here at 1080p, and I am actually not going to test FSR 2.0 at this resolution because we'd get exactly the same FPS. It would just lower our GPU utilization by a little bit. But guys, this is looking absolutely fantastic here, actually. Wow, beautiful graphics on very high. The shadows, yeah, we got to take a look at the shadows here because I saw a lot of pop-in with the RX 580 and RX 6600 XT. It wasn't really as bad with the 6600 XT, but I'm not really seeing that issue here with the 6900 XT, so that's great to see. Or maybe they actually fixed it with a patch or something meanwhile, but yeah, it's running quite well here on the 69, looking really good as well. To be expected, obviously. This isn't even a card that you should pair with a 1080p monitor. But hey, I'm not sure if you noticed, but we actually saw 100% GPU utilization in the Central Park area with all of that vegetation. It's super intensive, of course. So yeah, you can actually still max out a 6900 XT at 1080p resolution. Very interesting. But yeah, guys, this is basically a super playable, super buttery smooth experience. Stutters a little bit from time to time. That those frame times aren't really perfect, but I guess it's just because we're having a CPU bottleneck at the moment, so it's a little bit more unstable. If you lock the FPS to like 120, it should be buttery smooth, and it should get rid of those little spikes. Let's go up here, come on. And now when I look back at the entire city, everything will render and drop our FPS like crazy. Yeah, as you can see there, it dropped to 75, then it stabilized around 80. Oh boy, still dropping. Okay, all right, it drops, guys. It drops into the 50s. Are you serious? Now, that's not because of the GPU, because that is not maxed out. It's just the CPU, I guess, can't really render it above 60 frames all of the time. That's crazy, a 5900X. Holy crap. Anyways, let's go up to 1440p resolution. I will restart the game, although I don't think it's needed because we're not going over the VRAM limits. And here we are at 1440p, looking even better at this point. Way sharper than 1080p resolution, and I think this should be the minimum resolution that you go for if you are running a 6900 XT, guys. Like, it's almost getting around the same FPS as 1080p, right? And looking at the entire city, we need to do this right here. Okay, so looking back, it drops pretty much the same as 1080p, maybe a little bit more, but overall the experience is going to be very similar. And the GPU is still not maxed out, so we're still CPU bound around here, but now it didn't really drop, so interesting. Maybe it's because the CPU got used to it. I don't know, probably not. Just yeah, expect some variations, of course. It's not going to be 100% the same every single time whenever you're testing the games and seeing the FPS and stuff like that. But yeah, as you can see, we're still very much CPU bound, even at 1440p. I'm curious to see if FSR 2.0 will make a difference, because GPU usage sometimes gets up into the 90s. But I don't think it will, guys, because it's not maxed out most of the time, at least, even at this res. A little bit of a waste of a GPU if you're still playing at 1080p resolution, and if you are, I really recommend you to pick up a 1440p panel, because you're still gonna achieve high refresh rates in pretty much all of the games, and it's so much more crispy, and that's all that matters. Because I am crispy, you know. I'm kidding, but yeah, it's really good and detailed compared to 1080p. So around here in this area, we are 100% GPU bound finally, because of all of the foliage. It's usually very intensive on the GPU side of things, but of course the 6900 XT doesn't disappoint. It's still well above 60 FPS, very good. And now VRAM usage is not really that different compared to 1080p actually. It's only at 9.5 gigabytes. Interesting to see that there is not that much of a difference, because 1440p is around 78% bigger of a resolution than 1080, so I would expect the VRAM to be way higher. Anyways, let's stop it there. As you can see, in this scenario, we're actually getting 99% GPU utilization and 138 frames per second, or 140 right now. That's crazy high FPS, especially after testing the 960 in this game. But I'm curious to see it using FSR 2.0, because this can look better than native resolution at 1440p using the quality setting here, and we're getting 169 FPS average sometimes. That's beautiful. 6900 XT, 169, 69 watts please, or 69 degrees Celsius. Nope, not going there though. Yeah, you can probably tell that it looks pretty much the same as 1440p native, and it actually makes the image a little bit sharper. I can see a little bit more shimmering on buildings that are far away from you. For example, that one on top of Spider-Man's head right now. But it looks really good in this game. I'm gonna start counting the FPS, and now we should be more CPU bound, but we should also get more FPS slightly sometimes, especially here in this area, because we were GPU bound around here. And if you prefer the sharper look of FSR 2.0, it looks better. And as you can see now, we're getting the same CPU bottlenecks as 1080p resolution. I think we're seeing like 80 to 90% GPU usage, same as 1080p. So yeah, I guess we already know what to expect, right? It drops into the 80s and 70s at the minimum. It will drop to like 60 something whenever dropping from that huge building, and around here it's going to be at around 125 FPS average. At this point it just comes down to personal preference, honestly, whether or not you enable FSR 2.0 here at 1440p. I think I actually would. 3840 by 2160. Upscaling is off. TAA anti-aliasing right now. Still using the same maximum settings almost. Wow, it still shimmers though. That's really weird. Can you see that on top of Spider-Man's web? The head right now, not web. Let's go to the park area. These are some really good FPS at 4K resolution, guys. Damn, it looks so sharp and detailed. This is absolutely gorgeous. It might actually drop from 60 FPS though, but we still have FSR 2.0 to save the day as well, and that will definitely put us always above 60 FPS. Not sure about when dropping from the skyscraper though. We're gonna check it out here at native res as well as FSR. As you can see, it's not really dropping here, so everything is absolutely buttery smooth still, even at 4K. And 4K is a huge resolution compared to 1440p. The jump from 1080p to 1440 visually is bigger than 1440 to 4K, but in terms of pixel count, I think 1080p is like around 2 million pixels, 1440p is around 3.5 million pixels, and 4K is 8 million pixels, so it's super high of a resolution. Alright, let's move out of here. I want to see all of the NPCs down here. Look at this. It's so detailed, guys. There are so many people in the streets. Look at it. What the heck? It's insane. It's insane. Nice guitar, buddy. Can I play it? I actually can in real life. You know what? Don't forget to subscribe, by the way, because at 500,000 subscribers... Whoa. I saw some shadow popping right there for the first time in this video. I'm not sure if you guys noticed it already, but yeah, it's the first time that I have noticed it, so they still haven't fixed that. But as I was saying, at 500,000 subscribers, if we ever get that, I will be making a GPU song. So if you guys want to hear that, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and please watch the videos and stuff. It's not as good as the 3080 Ti in this game, but it is pretty solid still. It doesn't really drop from 60 frames per second, so really strong performance. The thing is, whenever you enable RayTracing, which does make a big difference in this game, honestly, it's probably gonna get wrecked. Notice that the VRAM usage is at 10.1 gigabytes, almost 10.2, so an RTX 3080, for example, would be slightly over the VRAM limit. Alright, here we go, guys, moment of truth. Oh, it drops. Yep, and now it's because of the GPU, because it's at 99% all of the time. But hey, it's gonna be a really solid experience anyways. Let's go over here and enable the FSR 2.0 on quality, which will look like a native 4K resolution anyways. I mean, I can't tell much of a difference aside from some more shimmering in some buildings at the distance. Let's go there, take a look back at the city. 70 FPS, a little bit better than previously. Yeah, it didn't drop from 60 FPS here, but it did drop from 60 FPS right here while we were dropping. But now, oh boy, it only slightly drops there to 59, and it was because of a little stutter there, so it doesn't really count, right? I guess right now we found that we can actually have really sharp visuals at 4K resolution with FSR 2.0. It's a little bit sharper actually than native res, but you can barely tell the difference because it's 4K already. So even TAA looks pretty sharp and detailed. But yeah, it runs absolutely buttery smooth 100% of the time right now. This is absolutely perfect, guys. Look at this. 80s, 90s. Wow. Insane performance right here coming from this card. It's awesome. And the GPU power usage is not really that high for some reason. I've seen it at 300 watts of power already, but now it's at 250, 260. That is interesting. And now we're finally here in the park area, getting close to 100 FPS still. Sometimes it drops to the 80s, but I mean, it's very solid. It's not dropping into the 60s anymore. I think that's what it dropped to at native 4K. So if you're running this resolution, I really recommend FSR 2.0. It looks really awesome. And it performs so well. Like, you gain 30 FPS around here, or 20 to 30 sometimes. The ray tracing is now enabled. I'm actually going to use very high RT, if I can set it to very high. Please, it might have crashed, I don't know. Sometimes it crashes whenever I'm trying to enable ray tracing. But alright, it didn't crash this time, but we still need to restart it, of course. And even after a restart, it seems like those FPS that we were getting previously were accurate, guys. Now the thing is, nothing in this particular area is ray traced, so that's why it's performing quite well. There are some reflections there, but they disappear once the trees go off screen, so they're not really ray traced reflections. The FPS drop is not really that huge, right? We're running FSR 2.0 as well, but I really recommend you to keep that enabled if you're running ray tracing anyways, even at 1440p resolution. We should test it out a little bit later as well, by the way. But yeah, so far so good. Okay, getting lower FPS here because there are a ton of ray traced reflections around us now in these buildings, and they're looking really good. Look at that. Yes, sir. Okay, pretty nice and pretty solid experience still at 4K. I am liking this, guys. I am really liking this. 3080 Ti did a little bit better, but honestly, this is still super playable 100% of the time. Let's sit down there, though, because the cars are also ray traced and stuff. Ooh, okay, it's dropping now. Yeah, okay, the 3080 Ti with DLSS was always above 60 frames per second, with ray tracing as well. This one, well, it drops into the 40s, so yeah, AMD still has to iron out ray tracing performance a bit, but can't deny this is still very strong performance coming from the 6900 XT. It's 4K using ray tracing after all, even though we're using FSR 2.0. That's extremely impressive and extremely demanding, of course. And oh, look at that! Oh no, come on, go down by a little bit, frame rate average. Please, go down. Wait, all right, we did it. Let's stop it right there. 69 FPS average. 69 degrees Celsius on a 6900 XT. Can the CPU go up to 69 degrees as well? That would be crazy, but no, it's not going to. Now let's turn it down to 1440p. I'll leave FSR 2.0 enabled as well, because it looked great at this res, and I will restart it. Oh yes, I just remembered that ray tracing actually becomes CPU bound at these lower resolutions. So we're seeing 60s. So if you want to run ray tracing, you absolutely need a latest generation CPU to achieve 60 plus FPS, and even then, sometimes it will drop. Look at that, 58 FPS with 70% GPU usage. Wow. So I guess 1080p resolution with RT will also be pretty much the same as this. But again, even though the GPU is not maxed out, we're seeing lower FPS than with the NVIDIA counterparts using ray tracing, I think. So there's still something limiting performance within the GPU itself while using ray tracing here. Alright, over here, yeah, it's not really that intensive once again, because there are no ray traced reflections. But hey guys, if you want ray tracing in this game with the 6900 XT, I guess you can still have almost 60 plus all of the time. Like 97% of the time it's going to be at 60 plus FPS, which is great. CPU usage is so high, by the way, while using ray tracing. That's crazy. This is a 24-threaded CPU. It's using 60%. Around here, ooh, dropping into the 60s now, but not really that big of an issue. 59 there. Take a look at the VRAM usage, by the way. It's higher now on the GPU than the actual system RAM. Very interesting. Lastly, 1080p with ray tracing. I'm going to do native resolution here in this one because it looks better than FSR at 1080p. And to no one's surprise, it is exactly the same as 1440p. Still dropping down into the 60s. It will still probably drop down into the 50s as well in some scenarios. So yeah, that's the ray tracing experience here with the 6900 XT. Could be better, yes, but it's still pretty solid. I think you can still enjoy it. Especially like at 1440p and 1080p, if you lock the FPS to 60, it's going to be more stable of an experience. And it's going to be pretty solid with beautiful reflections. And at 4K, if you lock it to like 40 FPS, it's still gonna be a better than console experience, I think. Last thing to do is climb this beast of a building and see it from above using ray tracing. Really curious to see how it will do here. And looking back at it, 60s, not bad actually. We are CPU bound at this point, I think. And not really dropping by all that much. It's pretty much the same thing as we've seen already here. So well guys, that's been it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I actually borrowed this GPU for an entire week, so expect a lot of 6900 XT videos coming up next week in like Red Dead Redemption 2, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Call of Duty Warzone, Valorant. Tomorrow I'll be back with another Spider-Man video testing minimum and recommended system requirements, and then Sunday it's gonna be a new GPU to the channel in a new Sunday video. So stay tuned in, my friends, and as always, love you all. Bye bye.